Alright, it's about time for us to talk about King's power and the abilities that come with it. And yes, I do know that there are many people that think that King does not have powers, and then there are also some people that think that he does. And I fall into the latter camp there, meaning that we're going in depth in this video. So if this is going to bother you, just remember that you chose to watch this video. But for everyone else, let's get into it because I've got a spicy one today. So first of all, King's overall power is what I call the aura. And I only call it that because someone else way more credible than me has called it that, and we'll go into who that is, of course. But the aura breaks down into three categories. First, we have the luck power, then we have the charisma power, and then we have the others fighting for him, or what I'd like to call the King's Men power, because, you know, like King's Men, not having others fight for him. And all three of these make up the aura, which is essentially King's overbearing ability that we see in the series. So first, let's establish what the luck power is. So first of all, this is a real thing. It is an existing power within fiction, and more so comics, which also plays into the whole thing about the other S-Class heroes having powers and other tropic abilities, if you will, like Flashy Flash having super speed, and so on and so forth. King has a luck ability, which notably the character Domino from Marvel also shares. But King's luck power kind of goes to the next level because it's become a supernatural ability in itself, as to where it can almost be considered meta luck, which is essentially having levels of luck that are so great it bends the structures of reality, constantly rearranging them to their advantage whether they want it or not. And that also plays into King because it is whether he wants it or not, because he's not even aware that he has his ability, evidently, as we see throughout the series. So this essentially means that probability means nothing, and they are immune and unaffected by the laws of causality and essentially live life without consequences. This allows the users amazing success in all activities and aspects of life, and able to surpass the most impossible odds, conquer the most difficult tasks and trials, and even defeat the most unbeatable enemies, as we've seen King do, considering that he has success with the S-Class and has defeated opponents that he has no business defeating. And if you're wondering who that is, well, I'm going to explain later on in the video, so just hold tight. So first of all, let's just establish that this luck power is indeed a real thing, because we're going to have to go back 8 years on One's Twitter, One, the creator of One Punch Man, where he said in response to someone that King has an aura that is mistaken for being strong, but it is a chain that binds him. So yes, this is a rough translation of what is actually being said, but in my opinion, this is more or less confirming that King does indeed have the ability that we're talking about in this video, and this is why I am labeling it the aura, since, you know, One kind of said it, and I think that's just a good umbrella term to fit all of the abilities that he has within it. Now, another smoking gun, or at least that I think is one, is after Saitama exits the Super Fight tournament and talks to King and that whole little monologue that they get into, the camera switches to a perspective of seeing a black cat walk behind them, and the black cat is looking at King. Now, this obviously happens for a reason. It's not just there for show. Now, you might be thinking, well, black cats mean bad luck. Well, that's not always the case, because in Japanese culture, black cats are actually lucky. Not only that, but they also frighten away demons, evil energy, and stalkers. So that's super interesting, right? Why would that be there? And considering that that's kind of relates to King, doesn't it? Well, let me go more into it. So King was forcibly recruited into the S-Class by the Hero Association due to his accomplishments, or should we just say lack thereof. And when he was originally recruited, we can assume that maybe he was just rank 6 right off the bat. But after the whole giant meteor incident, Metal Knight took over spot 6, and King moved up to rank 7, which we all know 7 is the lucky number, and that was just in time for us to be acquainted with the true King that we see in chapter 38, 39, and at the beginning of season 2. Now, is this a coincidence? I think not. So now that we have that established, let's get into the second ability of the aura, and that is King's charisma. And this thing is basically like a genjutsu, the way it affects people, because it essentially makes everyone either fear respect or like King to some degree, and no character is exempt from falling victim to this. And this is also where the King engine comes from, as that's an auditory manifestation of the intimidation factor of King. And also, everyone seems to vision King in a different way, which is just awesome, and it's really cool how everything plays out. Like, typically when a guy or somebody else will see King, they'll see him as this big, brooding figure. Or like, for example, when Garo sees King, he pictures King as being like this perfect being with no blind spots, moving in all directions at once. When women see King, they see him as this super handsome, like charismatic guy. But then when monsters see him, they see him as like this ultimate god monster devil being, as to where he's just this immovable object that has a presence that's just so overbearing. And that is, of course, the weaker that they are, as we saw that tongue stretcher just submitted to King without even throwing a punch or anything. And the weaker monsters can even just straight up die from the fear inflicted to them by King's charisma. Like, this literally happens in chapter 109. It's one of the greatest feats in the entire series. We also see another incredible display of power in the bonus chapter, King's Weekday Off, when he defeats an entire team of assassins just by sitting in a diner and writing on his laptop and talking to himself. It's truly remarkable. Also, as the monsters or just villains get more powerful, then they are more willing to engage with him, but they are still subjected to his charisma and allow him to essentially just talk his way out of the situation with them. Not even the S-Class heroes are immune to the aura of King, as when they see him enter the meeting in chapter 93, he looks as though he's like a divine figure to them. Even the most staunch heroes like Amai Mask, Flashy Flash, Atomic Samurai, and even friggin' Tatsumaki are impressed and also enticed and, dare I say, attracted to King. Not even Saitama, the one above all, is immune to King's charisma. Now granted, he is the only one that knows the truth about King not being physically powerful, but this still does not stop him from essentially forcibly befriending King, even after finding out the truth, and even after seeing King urinate himself after the giant crow invaded their apartment. He still makes plans for hanging out with King afterwards, and to this day is basically like sees King as his only true friend, I guess, which is out of the ordinary for Saitama, obviously, considering that he's typically misanthropic and usually doesn't like people or just being around people at all. So now let's go into having others fight for him, aka the King's Men ability. So King just straight up tells the audience himself the existence of this ability when he says, "An evil monster just happened to appear in front of me once and someone defeated it while I closed my eyes. That coincidentally happened over and over again. Eventually someone will show up to defeat them. I just happen to be at those places." So if you just want to think that this is like a coincidence that something this extreme happens over and over and over again, well, that's up to you, but this is clearly King's ability, which is a part of the aura to have others fight for him if need be. And primarily we see Saitama shows up most of the time, which also reveals that King was responsible for taking out some of the most powerful villains we've seen in the series so far, such as Vaccine Man, Beefcake, and of course Elder Centipede, and also Garo. And this also brings us back to the origin of King's abilities, as when we see in the flashback he gets struck by Octopus Clawman, this subsequently awakens King's powers and also kickstarts the King's Men ability, conjuring Saitama to his aid, taking out the Octopus Clawman for him, and also giving him the claw mark in the process, which aids to his intimidation factor and kind of signifying that his abilities have awakened, because after this point King is never touched again. So now that we've established all of the powers of King's aura, let's take a look at a great example of all of the powers working in junction with each other, as well as just showing the expert level writing of one. So this takes us back to the beginning of Season 2, when Saitama and Genos are walking down the street and they see King in the distance being encountered by the G4 robot. And Genos says, "Hey, that's King. Let's sit back and watch what his abilities are." So the first time reading this, you might be thinking, oh, we're finally going to see King's abilities. I wonder what they are. And then it turns out, oh, nothing happened. And then the second time you read this, you might be thinking, oh, this is a funny moment because it's revealed that King is a weakling. But maybe on the third time, you'll now see that we are in fact seeing King's abilities in this sequence. Because first of all, his luck is influencing all of the factors here. It's allowing him to be in the same vicinity as both Genos and Saitama. And also it's influencing his charisma, which makes G4 respect him to the point of where he allows King to talk him out of the situation and have King escape from the vicinity. And then that also brings us to the King's Men ability, having Genos step in and fight G4 for him. This is all three abilities working at once. And this also means that Genos is in fact unknowingly seeing King's abilities here, but also becoming a part of them himself. Going back to one's expert level writing here. So now at this point, I want to go into webcomic spoiler stuff to really show how ridiculous King gets. So if you don't want to know what's going to happen after what the manga is currently at, I suggest you check out now. So it eventually gets to the point in the Monster Association War where King by himself is staring down Psychos, Black S, Homeless Emperor, and Evil Natural Water all at the same time. But they are all paralyzed in fear by King and refuse to attack him. In fact, King just talking is mentally destroying them. This shows how far his aura ability goes as to where 4 dragons are even incapable of breaking through it. Now this also leads into his King's Men ability, as to where he conjures Fubuki, Zombie Man, and a Mind Mask to fight his current battles for him, but King also goes on to intimidate the likes of Golden S, a fringe above dragon level monster, to the point of where he says he almost craps his pants from the notion of King using his King-style Energy Wave Ultimate Hellfire Burst Wave Motion Cannon, which doesn't really have any tangible effects in reality other than just intimidating a powerful monster, but it can also be construed as this straight up summoning Priwo Garo to fight Golden S for him. Later after the war, Atomic Samurai challenges King to a fight, but due to King's overwhelming charisma, he convinces Atomic Samurai to settle for an apple cutting contest instead. He gives King the sword, but King is unable to pull it from the sheath and simply just puts the sword down and walks away. This paralyzes Atomic Samurai in fear, as he perceives King as having cut the apple so fast that the apple itself hadn't noticed that it had been cut, and King essentially moved through the gap between cells, something that Atomic Samurai himself is incapable of doing, rendering him completely at a loss of words and having the utmost respect for King, who he says is an outrageous monster. After this, it's revealed that King's aura is so powerful that he is literally incapable of revealing the truth about him being physically weak to someone such as Silverfang, as he literally tells him the truth. But Silverfang is unable to see past the aura and just thinks that King is having some kind of crisis and tells him to go on a vision quest, never truly understanding what King is actually saying. So now I just want to touch on one last thing, and that's what Murata said regarding King's power. So in a live stream, he was asked, what if King awakens his power? And Murata said, King cannot have his power awakened. He'll lose his charm. King is the best just the way he is. Everything he does will be hero-like too. King should be able to become a hero just the way he is now. This I heard a bit from one. Well, either way, please look forward to the story. He will show his manly side. So people try to misconstrue this as something that it's not, kind of referring to the aura. What the sequence that they're referring to here is obviously a callback to the whole wave motion cannon sequence, as to where it literally says, kind of like in a pseudo narration, maybe coming from King's mind, where it says, the power of courage has made this a miracle. He turned his imaginary move into reality. The talent he possessed since birth was all unleashed at this moment. A power that rivals Saitama. He hasn't realized that until now. That's what he's talking about. Like a tangible, like energy projection or something like that kind of power awakening in King. This obviously happen because it would in fact lose King's charm, such as the charm that he has about his aura. That would kind of ruin the whole aspect of King. He's not just talking about the aura itself. So I just wanted to spell that. But in the end, you're probably just going to believe whatever you want. But that's pretty much it for the video today, guys. Some of you will be angered by this, and some of you will be entertained. But if you liked it regardless, please give this video a like, and let me know what you think about King's aura, or just whatever powers or you think he does or doesn't have in the comments. And I also have a Patreon, gives you access to a weekly Q&A, and I've recently unlocked memberships on the channel. You'll see that blue join button as well, and subscribe if you haven't already. Have a great day. I'll see you in the next